The first time he saw me, he screamed like I had crawled out of a horror movie. The second time, he asked if I was real. I wasn't a ghost. I was just a boy who had taken a wrong turn in the woods, bruised, starving, and desperate for shelter. But in that moment, with moonlight spilling across the rotting beams of the old mansion, I almost believed him when he whispered that I didn't belong to the living. His name was Nathaniel Grayer, just Nate, as he later allowed me to call him. He was the kind of man who carried shadows in his eyes even when he smiled, someone who looked like he had been burned by life and never quite healed. And me? I was nobody special, just Liama Runaway. A fool, a boy who thought he could survive by himself until the forest swallowed me whole. The night it happened, I had stumbled through the trees for hours, my throat dry, the cold biting my skin. I hadn't eaten since morning. My sneakers were caked in mud, my jeans torn from climbing fences I wasn't supposed to cross. The forest felt endless, like it wanted to consume me. That's when I saw the mansion. The place was massive, its structure half drowned in ivy, windows boarded in places, but still strangely alive. Candlelight flickered from within, which shouldn't have been possible in a house long abandoned. My instincts told me to run, but desperation pushed me forward. I had nowhere else to go. I pushed the heavy oak door open, creaked like the cry of a dying animal. The air smelled of dust and old wood, yet there was warmth, faint but present. My legs gave out, and I collapsed onto the worn rug at the entrance. When I woke, it was to the sound of a man shouting, "Who the hell are you?" His voice cracked, but the fear in it was sharp enough to slice me open. I blinked through the haze. Standing in the doorway was Nate, holding a flashlight like it was a weapon. His dark hair was messy, his shirt half-buttoned, his jeans old but clean. His chest rose and fell fast, like he had been running or like he'd seen something that rattled him to his core. "You can see me?" I croaked, my voice dry. He froze. For a heartbeat, his face went pale, his knuckles white around the flashlight. "You're not supposed to be here." Then came the strangest thing. Didn't approach, didn't try to help. He just stared, like I was something that shouldn't exist. And in his eyes, I caught it. Fear. Not of me as a stranger, but of me as if I weren't human at all. "I'm not," I started, but my chest ached too much. I need water." Something flickered across his expression. Hesitation, suspicion, but also something softer, buried beneath the layers he wore like armor. Slowly, he lowered the flashlight. "You're real," he muttered under his breath, like he didn't fully believe it. "You're not one of them." "One of who?" I whispered, but he didn't answer. Instead, he disappeared into another room and came back with a glass of water. The way he watched me drink was unsettling, like he was cataloging every move, weighing the evidence of my existence. But when I finished, his gaze softened, just enough for me to breathe without feeling like a ghost myself. "Why are you here?" he asked. I laughed bitterly, though it scraped my throat. "I could ask you the same thing." His lips twitched, almost a smile, almost a sneer. "I live here. You don't." I should have run then. I should have thanked him for the water and dragged myself back into the woods. But there was something magnetic about the way he stood there, equal parts wary and broken, like the mansion itself. A man tethered to his own ruins. And maybe because I was lost, maybe because I was tired, maybe because I had nothing else, I stayed. The following days blurred together. Nate didn't throw me out. He didn't welcome me either. It was more like he tolerated my existence. He kept his distance, always suspicious, always watchful. You wander the woods in the middle of the night, collapse in my house, and expect me to just, "What? Believe you're some lost kid?" he asked one morning, sipping black coffee that smelled like burnt bitterness. "Believe whatever you want," I muttered, tearing a piece of bread in my hands. It was the first real food I'd eaten in days, and I didn't care if he thought I was some apparition as long as he kept feeding me. He studied me then, his gaze sharper than I could handle. "You look too real to be a ghost, too broken to be lying." I didn't know if that was a compliment or an insult. Maybe both. At night, the mansion groaned with the weight of its history. I could hear footsteps when no one walked, whispers in the walls when Nate wasn't around. Sometimes I caught him staring at the shadows, his jaw tight, like he knew something I didn't, and every time I asked, he brushed it off. But beneath all that darkness, something else began to stir between us. The way he offered me his old sweatshirt when he thought I was shivering. The way his eyes softened when he caught me tracing the faded wallpaper like it was something holy. The way silence between us didn't always feel heavy anymore. Still, the mansion had a way of holding secrets. And Nate was the biggest one of them all. The storm outside raged for hours, tearing branches from trees, slamming rain against the boarded windows. Inside the mansion, the air was heavy with secrets neither of us had dared to fully share. I watched Nate pace the length of the parlor, his fists clenching and unclenching. "You shouldn't have stayed," he muttered finally, his voice raw. "This house, none of it is safe." I swallowed hard. My hands trembled where they rested on my knees. "You keep saying that, but you never explain. You think I'm some ghost, Nate. You think I don't belong. Maybe you're right, but if you want me gone, say it. Say it, and I'll walk back into the woods." His head whipped toward me. His eyes burned not with anger, but with fear. "You don't get it. The woods will eat you alive. And if they don't, this place will." I rose to my feet, my body screaming from exhaustion, but I forced myself to meet his gaze. "Then tell me the truth." The silence stretched, broken only by thunder shaking the floorboards. Finally, he sank into the chair across from me, his face buried in his hands. "My father died in this house," he whispered. "Or maybe he didn't. No one ever found the body. Just the blood. They said the house was cursed, that people who came here never left. I stayed because someone had to hold it together. But every night I hear him. Every night, I think I'll see his shadow in the hall." A chill crawled down my spine, but not from fear, from the weight of his loneliness. "And you thought I was one of those shadows?" I murmured. He nodded slowly, lifting his eyes to me. They glistened in the flicker of the firelight. "You looked like you belonged to the mansion, like it had swallowed you up the way it did him." My heart ached. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that I wasn't part of this house's curse. But in a way I was lost, broken, half convinced I wasn't real myself. Maybe that was why he hadn't chased me away. We were both prisoners of something bigger than us. "I'm not a ghost, Nate," I said softly. "I bleed. I bruise. I get hungry. I screw up. I'm just me. A kid who didn't know where else to go." Something shifted in his expression. The hardness melted, replaced with something rawer, more human. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "And what happens if I ask you to stay?" My breath caught. I hadn't expected him to say that. "I'd stay," I whispered. "Not because I belong to this house, but because maybe I belong with you." The storm outside screamed louder, as if mocking our fragile confessions. But in that moment it didn't matter. His hand brushed mine, tentative at first, then firmer, grounding me in a way I hadn't felt in years. Days turned into weeks. The mansion didn't feel as haunted anymore. The creaks and groans became familiar, the whispers less menacing. Or maybe it was just that Nate's presence made it all bearable. We fell into a rhythm, him teaching me how to patch leaky windows, me cooking the simplest meals with whatever we had. Sometimes we argued. He hated how careless I was with the fireplace. I hated how closed off he could still be. But beneath it all was an unspoken understanding. We needed each other. One night, we sat by the broken piano in the drawing room. The keys were yellowed, some chipped, but Nate's fingers moved over them with surprising grace. "You play?" I said, watching him in awe. "Not anymore," he muttered, though the melody proved otherwise. "Play for me," I whispered. He didn't look at me, but he played. And when he did, I saw a version of him that wasn't haunted, wasn't broken, a boy who had once dreamed before life had stolen too much. I rested my head on his shoulder. For the first time in years I felt safe. But the mansion wasn't finished with us. One evening, while exploring the east wing, I stumbled upon a locked door. The wood was splintered, claw marks etched deep into its surface. I felt a pull, like something wanted me to open it. Nate caught me staring. His face went pale. "Don't," he said sharply. "What's behind it?" He shook his head. "Nothing you want to see." That night, I dreamed of a man's shadow pacing behind that door, whispering Nate's name. I told him about it in the morning. He didn't look surprised, just tired. "It never stops," he admitted. "I thought maybe, with you here, it would fade." "Maybe it has," I said gently. "You're not alone anymore." For the first time, he smiled, not the half-smirk I'd seen before, but a real, fragile smile that made my chest ache. The final test came when the whispers grew too loud, the door rattling as if something clawed to get free. Nate stood frozen, flashlight in hand, shaking like the first night we met. "I can't," he whispered. "I can't face it." I reached for him, gripping his hand tightly. "You don't have to face it alone." Together, we pushed the door open. The room beyond was empty, no ghost, no body, just dust and silence. The only thing left was the echo of grief Nate had carried all these years. Tears slid down his face. All this time, it was just me. I wrapped my arms around him, pulling him close. "It was never just you. Not anymore." The mansion didn't change overnight. It still groaned and whispered, still carried its scars. But it no longer felt like a prison. It felt like a place of healing, because we had chosen to stay not out of fear, but out of love. Months later, the spring sun spilled through the windows. The woods outside were no longer threatening. They were alive with green. I stood on the porch, breathing in the fresh air, when Nate joined me, sliding his arm around my shoulders. "Still think I'm a ghost?" I teased. He chuckled softly, pressing a kiss against my temple. "No. You're the most real thing I've ever had." And in his arms, with the old mansion behind us and the world waiting ahead, I finally believed it. We weren't haunted anymore. We were free. Free to love. Free to stay. Free to build something new out of the ruins of the past. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.